Good morning, comrades. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Nürburgring here at Apex. As mentioned in the previous video, we today are going to be doing the M4. What exactly? Oil change on the gearbox?
DCT, yeah.
DCT, yes. And how are you doing it in the first place?
Like you pull some plugs out, let oil fall out, and then just change some filters. No, yeah, there's a process that you kind of don't have to stick to, but do at the same time. 40 degrees, gearbox oil temp. Drop the oil, take the sump plan off, change the filters, etc., etc. We could get more in depth as we go along. But yeah, it's relatively straightforward, just a bit time consuming. So yeah, we're going to do that now. We have some filters over there as well, which we can show in a bit.
Which oil do we use and how long do we use it for?
We use the liquid moly DCT oil, so it's their special one. I change this more regular than OEM oil. It's good, but it does tend to struggle with higher temperatures on the track as such. So you change it a little bit more often than you would other, which is not a bad thing. You change it more often on the DCT anyway, so it's not too much of an issue.
It's basically like any race car. When you have a GT3 race car, you have a service interval of an engine more often than on a road car. It's just something.
Exactly. So there's obviously loads of different oils you can use, but you probably change them at the same interval anyway, because you don't want. I mean, DCTs are an expensive gearbox to repair. You don't really want to end up paying €4,000 for a repair, just because you couldn't be bothered to change oil before its interval. You know, and even from a dealer, I've seen gearboxes at 41,000 miles when the oil's due at 40 service interval and they haven't had the oil changed and there's gearbox issues. So it's a sensitive subject. Obviously DCTs rely a lot on pressure, if you know how the valve bodies work, and yeah, I won't get into that at the moment, but so yeah, we'll change it now because it's done the last few months of the season with a bit of a head kicking in. So we're going to change it now. It's probably going to come out quite rank, to be honest, so it wouldn't surprise me. It's had some fairly hard laps towards the end.
Cool. Okay, well, let's get the oil changed, have a look at just how we do it and the components and the filters, and after that we'll show you or talk you through the plans that we have with this car, because it's one of the oldest cars in our fleet since 2017, September 2017 I think we had it, or slightly earlier than that, but it's gone through so many iterations and so many changes, and also for the upcoming year, for 2022, for this year actually, but upcoming season, we have lots of plans with it. So let's go, have a look.
So yeah, you start with obviously running the carburetor temperature. You run it up to 40 degrees. Obviously stop the engine, drain plug out, the fill plug out, because obviously it drains quicker with the airflow pushing it through. Let the oil drain as much as you can, because it's obviously easier for when you take the sump pan off. So on this car you've got two filters. You have one in the sump pan, which doesn't get changed too often. I think normally you change it maybe like once every 2 small oil changes basically. Then you have a smaller filter which is in the side of the gearbox, which is obviously the main filter that's changed all the time. And then you take the sump pan off, change the filter inside the gearbox. So yeah, that's pretty much straightforward of draining. Obviously everything back together, you fill the oil. I always overfill the oil, run the car up through the gears up to 40 degrees, back in neutral, and then you drain the oil again. You take the fill plug out, and drain some of the excess oil off. And then that's basically it. Plugs back in, go on road test, make sure the gearbox feels good. Sometimes worth carrying out an adaptation through the diagnostics. It's kind of depending on how hard the car's been driven, etc. You don't really know. Most road cars you get away without carrying out adaptations, but sometimes it is ideal. A lot of the manufacturers, like diagnostic details, will actually say if adaptation drive is needed, then carry out adaptation drive. So yeah, it's relatively straightforward, just a little bit messy because gearbox oil is hell to work with, but yeah, that's about it really.
Okay, so the oil change is done. The car is up in the air on the lift because, as promised, we will talk you through the mods and the plans that we have with the car. And it is actually quite a lot. As you could have seen last year, there was a lot of it was replaced, like bushings, diff mounts, all the kinds of mounts.
Yeah, suspension. I can run through it as we go around the car.
Yeah, we can do that. But a lot of it is going to happen again this year, and the reason for that is because this is top-of-the-line car of our fleet. It is the fastest car that we have when it comes to rental cars. And when it gets driven hard, it gets driven hard.
I mean, let's rewind to, let's use the famous Kubica laps.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you doing?
All right.
Yeah, exactly. Robert Kubica, we talked about it as well. Of course, sometimes someone just hops in and just wants to do a lap for a checkbox. I've been to the Nürburgring and then it's all easy. But when it goes hard, it goes really hard. And at the end of the year, where we are right now in the winter season, it's really, the parts require some attention. And a lot of them is just simply maintenance and replacing. And this year also, we will replace certain parts just to see how they will.
Yeah, it's preventative maintenance. So I've seen, obviously the Taxi is like the extreme version of this car, the F80. And the faults that we've seen on this car, we don't want to happen with this. Obviously that's under more weight, that's under more load every lap. So before it gets to that stage, we'd rather do the preventative maintenance and then just do it now.
Yeah, exactly. But on top we have also other components, such as aftermarket components that you would talk about, the brakes, and in this case actually suspension, that are already replaced, but we're going to replace to something else. What are we going to, actually, I'm going to straight up say it. Right now the car is running JRZ suspension, but it will be replaced by KW. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to say, like, what are you like swapping over? Why is... The reason for that is quite simple, is because we run multiple brands, we run multiple products, because we want to find out what works for one car, what works for one scenario, what is simply the best out there. And at the end of the day, the best comparison would be also us running two different brands of tires. We run Michelin and Ankang for different scenarios, different cars, and there's no such thing as pinpointing one is better, one is worse, and we just have to try and see, and at the end we're going to say one is better.
There's always different stuff that works best for different cars. It's just how it is. Your rear-wheel drive cars, front-wheel drive cars, four-wheel drive cars, everything always. There's always differences that is car to car. It's a choice.
Yeah. So for that, stay tuned to find out. But now let's walk through the things that that you mostly.
Well, we can start. We can start right from the back. So the first instance, I spent probably a few hours looking at what parts we need to change this year or for this season, or what we want to change for preventative maintenance and stuff that needs changing. And obviously the main thing that takes a beating that is visible is all the paintwork. So you can see up here, this is all cracked. Like literally, it's like cracked the plastic. So that's all destroyed from the heat from the exhaust. You have the absolutely battered side skirts and all the side things. We'll see it as we'll walk down the car. So the first thing is replacing all the completely destroyed trims. This has done probably 3 seasons, this trim, so it's now at a point where it needs to be replaced. Side skirts haven't been painted for a couple of years, so we'll get it up to a nice refresh, kind of good standard.
Is this still the molten Kubica bumper?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
yes, it is. So yeah, so it's this car will go to our demo car as such, what we can build. So using the certain parts we use, which we know work, hence the reason why we're testing KW. Testing other parts along the way, which are not confirmed yet, but there will be some changes to test some other bits and pieces. We want to get the car to a point where if you want to have this car built in the future, yes, we'll be able to build it. It's that simple.
It's something that I already mentioned in one of the previous videos last year when we built the Yaris, and we said we actually built another Yaris to customer spec, and we said like, hey, we are thinking of building cars for people. Is this something what you would like? Which was
I've already got inquiries about it, so it's something I think people wouldn't mind, because at the moment there's no garages in the Nürburgring. There's like none. There's local areas, yeah, sure, but here, no. So I think it would be good to use our experience and our knowledge from testing stuff on these cars to get these cars perfect. I mean, this is on a track day, it's done a 710 BTG as it is now, literally as it is now.
With stock power.
With stock power. I mean, it's impressive. It's a fast car. Yeah. So yeah, we want to use our knowledge and stuff and build cars for people. I think it'll be a great way to go. But obviously, first things first, let's get this to a nice refreshed state. So yeah, bodywork will be the first thing that's obviously visible that you'll see. The Miltech exhaust is still on. That was fresh on at the beginning of the season. That will just have a clean up. That's perfect still. There's no complaints about that whatsoever. The diff lift kit, that is still perfectly fine. They're obviously solid bushings, so when that subframe comes out, we'll just make sure there's no cracks in the bushings, which there shouldn't be. They'll be fine. Make sure there's no issues with any of that. Maybe replace some bolts and give that a freshen up along with the diff, which you can see is leaking oil because it sweats so much from the pressure. So yeah, this will all have a nice refresh. Obviously you've got all our kinematics that are on the car from Sherma at the moment, obviously taken a huge beating over the last few years. So that'll be another thing that comes off, have a refresh and change things up a little bit. You can see the JRZs, great condition still, so there's no complaints on the quality of how the damper bodies hold up on them, and that's for sure. So obviously, yeah, all your wishbones, all your control arms will all get changed. All the bearings, the bushings will all get changed on them. One of the big issues I found with the taxi is we had these hub carriers, the bearing carriers, so this whole piece here, which holds everything. They have been known to crack under like serious stress. So we've had one on the taxi that cracks. Obviously, this is why we check the taxi every day after taxi duties, because we need to find these issues. So out of preventative maintenance, obviously these have been checked. I want to change them just to make sure that we don't have them issues. Maybe we'll do a video at some point, we'll give them a real good clean up, get some crack testing stuff and actually go in depth and have a look to see if there's any hairline cracks starting or something. Could be quite cool. Yeah. So yeah, all that will get changed. The drive shafts, although they look rotten, they were actually changed very recently. I've obviously been sitting in the snow and driven in the rain a few times, so that's that for the moment. So yeah, the whole rear axle carrier, like you've seen in previous videos, basically everything that you're looking at here will be refreshed or replaced. Heat shields, just everything on the back is all being changed. All the plastic trims, because some of them are stone chipped. I don't think you can see, there's one of them that's got a hole in from stones, and I know you're probably thinking, oh, what's the point? It's only going to go back on track again. But this is what will make sure the car is at a good standard for anyone that wants a car built. That's kind of how we want to attack it.
And on top of that, don't forget that this car is one of the oldest cars of our fleet. It has been with us since 2017. So it's entering 6th year of service with over 80,000 kilometers on the clock, I think.
Yeah, it's on 90 now.
90? Yeah. Over 90,000, approaching 100,000 kilometers, 60,000 miles.
Obviously, it's had an engine, it's had, what else has it had? A transmission as well, right?
It had a couple of things, but it's that's what a lot of people forget when it comes to track driving the cars. You need to update things. That's why also all the race cars have all those, like in the maintenance books, they have those service intervals when you need to change the engine, change this, change air jacks.
Yeah, exactly. It's everything's per track kilometer.
And the same goes here. But that's what a lot of people forget when they build a car new for a season, they drive a season, and at the end of the year, their car starts falling apart. They're like, hold on, why is this happening? It's a new car. I built it this year. Yes, but even though it is...
Yeah, things need to be changed. Things get warm. I mean, we see it a lot here. So yeah. We've got obviously all the heat shields here, all be changed. The fuel tank will have a clean up. We don't need to replace that, that's fine. All these trims here will all get changed as well because, again, they're all scratched up, all battered. And I'll be honest, trims like this, all it takes is for it to be scuffed a few times, it to be weak in a spot, someone to hit a curb, and then because it's weak, it rips. And then you've got a trim flapping, going down foxhole or something. And this is all like this. This is a prime example. This has all been ripped off. So we'll change it. It's at the point now where we can refresh everything. So we'll refresh it and change it. All the exhaust rubbers will be changed, all the exhaust mounts. The, what was I going to say? Can't remember, it's gone from my head now. So everything that you see basically here it will get changed. This tray's been changed a couple of times recently anyway, because this does get an absolute caning, as you can see from the scratch marks on it from compressions. It does get a little bit of a battering. Same as this front trim. This is one thing I would love to go away from, is this oil cooler. This is the engine oil cooler, and as you can see how low and flat it sits, as soon as you have any impact on the front, boof, oil cooler's gone.
I was surprised I didn't destroy it last year when I went over the curb.
Yeah, when that guy pushed you off, I remember that. Yeah. So that if there's a kit available that's a reasonable price, there is something that I will look at doing, is moving that oil cooler into the front grille, because I've hated that ever since I've noticed. So yeah, front suspension. Obviously, we run the Sherma front bearings on the caster arms as well, which have been in the car since way before I started. All the kinematics has. Obviously, we've changed uniballs since, but so they'll get changed. The wishbones will get changed. What else? Everything basically. Tie rods, tie rod ends, maybe even some adjustable anti-roll bars, because not a lot of people mess with them. So we want to have a little play. Obviously, that means anti-roll bar links anyway, because they'll probably be adjustable. KW suspension, of course, that'll be changed in. Back plates, calipers, brake lines.
Calipers, are we going to still be running stock?
These calipers are perfect. I literally can't, let me move around here, it's a bit easier. These calipers are literally perfect, like I can't fault them. We've never had any braking issues with them. The braking power is fantastic. They don't like, unless you literally physically destroy pads and like melt the pistons, you've got no issues with them. So
yeah.
One thing that I read up on before and we've spoken to a couple of people about is running black calipers and about heat. Apparently, somehow the matte black caliper will dissipate heat better than most others.
Okay.
So that's another thing that we're probably going to put to the test. We have a whole set of calipers that have been refurbished, painted out of house, and I've rebuilt them here. So we're going to give them a test and see how they hold up against what this. Plus, obviously, these go green anyway, because the original calipers don't like to hold colour. Yeah.
But on the taxi, were you running APs?
Yeah, but that's slightly different because that's over two tons. Yeah, exactly. So that needs it.
In this case, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
In this case, it doesn't need it, but
the OEM disc lasts for ages on this, like forever. So yeah, so basically the whole hub, this carrier as well, will be changed. The crack that we had before was on this bottom ball joint. As Sherma gave me a few lessons when I first came here, me not knowing how much pressure is on these bottom ball joints, there's like, in a compression, 15 tons of pressure on the ball joint.
Wow.
So on this point alone, you've got that much pressure. You can imagine this is pretty strong to have to cope with it. So changing it before it starts to crack.
Yeah, might be a good idea.
It is a good idea, so yeah. As I say, at the moment it's fine. We've given a clean up last season, we've checked them over and they seem fine. It's not a massive issue, but like I say, I want to change them to make sure it's all good and it's all fresh. So yeah, that's most of what we're going to change. I mean, if you look at the front bumper's taken a bit of a beating as well. You can see all the stone chips and all the mess. So again, paint. We'll probably sand down the headlights to make sure the headlights have a nice fresh look instead of spending €1,000 each headlight or however much they are. So yeah, it'll be a fresh build except for engine and gearbox basically. So everything will be nice and refreshed, everything will be nice and cool. And then hopefully we'll get back out on a couple of testing days of suspension and stuff and see how Tim feels the difference in the car. Obviously it'll be a lot less tired now, so that'll be a good start.
Should be interesting. Regarding engine, we'll keep the power stock because it's...
Yeah, we'll keep the power stock. Now I've always been a fan of, so Oleg at Atomic, he does a good job of mapping these S55s, of moving the torque spike. So it's always been a big issue for us, for me, knowing how this car, the mapping is. If you know S55s, you know how the mapping is. To be honest with you, anything, N54, S54, all the S54, N54, N55, S55. The torque is like peak torque, 500 Newton meters of torque at 1,500 revs. So you can imagine changing gear like low down to try and get up like X Muller in the wet, it wants to step. So Oleg does a good job of changing the mapping so that torque spike that comes in instantly is then moved so it's more linear. So, I mean, the N55 is, I think, is way better in the M2. It feels more linear, it feels more like a naturally aspirated engine. So I think changing the mapping to something more like that will be, I think it'll work wonders for rental customers and driving this car with drivability. So
yeah,
it's maybe something like that. We'll have to see if Robert wants to play down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, power is like this car, as mentioned, has more than enough power, 431 stock, and it already did 709, 710, and that's fine. And so it's since we're talking about lap times anyway.
I mean, you want it to last. You don't want to put 560 horsepower through it now, and then if it's a rental car for us, so it doesn't make sense. And if it works for us to do them sort of times, then it will work for someone to drive on TF.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the speeds that you're doing already with the stock power, we can go on and on. All I want to say is that we are not going to increase power. We might do some engine mods in terms of like we might do some cheeky intake like we have with the Yaris.
Yeah, we might do just for some
experience.
Some experience and see what changes it makes. It might make temperature differences. The intake temperature is cooler, obviously. Stuff like that will help. So we'll see.
I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's pretty much covered. But
so it's
that'll be an ongoing process for sure.
Exactly. Well, I think that we might as well say goodbye here because it turned up quite a video full of variety of like doing an oil change and then giving you some rundowns of what we will change again, not only oil change. Hope it gets you guys excited to follow the video series, but also to drive this car once it's finally finished. But you know, like with every project car, no such thing as a car being finished, so it will be an ongoing process. But yeah, it will be interesting to give it a go again by the time the track opens, because it will be like a brand new car. It already was last year, and now with even more.
Well, last year the difference is when we lapped it was like we was over the moon with it.
It was, yes, absolutely. So very much looking forward for that, and for that, subscribe, like, share. You know what to do, and but most importantly, come and experience the car yourself. So see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.